Welcome back.
Here we are.
Here we are. Another week.
Another day.
Another 50 cents.
Here it is. Layman's Term Podcast.
So today we're going to be looking at
Conversations between Jesus and Peter.
And Peter.
My guy Peter.
Your guy Peter. So
Old Cephas.
really the kind of the ups and downs of Peter's journey from nobody that Jesus just meets to
humble fisherman,
to the end, and then obviously we know what Peter did beyond, started the church in Rome,
kind of turned into the de facto leader of the
of the group,
apostles,
right?
And kind of took charge, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't always a great journey, right? Like it wasn't always like, oh hey, boom, it wasn't an immediate change.
Yeah, it's a great story, but at different points throughout there, I think Peter had lots of highs and lots of lows, and I hope that we can all learn to relate to the highs and lows of Peter on that journey, and relationship of being in that journey with Jesus, and appreciate the transformation that we go through as Christians, that we can only experience and be transformed by Christ's persistence, and by Christ's persistence through others and those relationships.
Yeah, and I would say that everybody kind of looks to the transformation of Paul as this kind of immediate transformation, right? And so as Christians, we want to feel like we get to a point where it's definitive, like, oh man,
Boom.
I changed. Boom, I changed. But really, in essence, it's a progression, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a slow for the vast majority of people. It's a slow progression. So, I'm going to start off with a question for you, because I don't really have. When I was growing up, I didn't really have a nickname. People would call me Hall, right? Because last name, playing sports or whatever.
Yep.
But I never really had a nickname. I don't know. Nothing that I remember, at least. Did you have a nickname?
So it's funny. It's funny because I go by Mitch or Mitchell. Mm-hmm. Mitchell's my name. Mm-hmm. A lot of people know me as Mitchell. A lot of people refer to me as Mitchell. I respond to that. And I think it was, my funny story with it is like, coming home from college, and like I had friends and they were calling me Mitch, and my mom's like, when did you start going by that? And I was like, well, I've kind of always gone by that. Like, people shorten up my name, and it's kind of, but the funny part,
because they assume that you don't want to be called Mitchell. They just assume.
Well, no, they just like, well, no.
Or somebody else calls you Mitch, and then they hear it, and then they call you Mitch.
No, the funny thing, the funny part is my brother's Lucas. So we're standing there in the kitchen. I have my brother Lucas, and here's.
Does he go by Lucas or Luke?
Lucas. He's Lucas and Mitchell.
Okay.
It's
All
Lucas
right.
and Mitchell
Okay.
here. And to drive my point home, he's not in the conversation. And I just turn and I say, hey, Luke. He goes, yeah, Mitch. We're brothers. We just drop syllables as often as we can. Our youngest brother's Ethan. We call him E. Like, just give him a letter.
Oh my gosh, my mom will do that, right? So she will.
But your name starts with a K, so K.
No, the problem is all three of my kids are P's, right? So she'll be like, "How's P doing today?" Like, which one of them, Or talk to E, my brother Evan, about C, one of his kids, and it's like.
Stop it.
Stop. Can we? I know you're trying to be short with a text message, but like with 3 kids with P's in them, it gets a little confusing.
Yeah, stop. But no, I never had a cool nickname.
Now I've given people nicknames before. I've given a lot of people nicknames.
Like good ones?
Yeah, well, I don't know, for whatever reason, I just have this thing that I will get to know somebody and then just boom, start calling them by a nickname, right? And usually, for me, it's not a nickname that catches on, where everybody's like, "Oh, that's a cool nickname," but they like it, and I just call them that. Not all the time, right? But yeah, so Penny, one of my kids, her middle name's Faye, and so I call her PF Chang, PF Penny Faye, right? Nobody else calls her that, right? But I have for the longest time, and if somebody else tries to call her that, she'll be like, "No, that's just for me and Dad," and I'm like, "Well, it's cool." So I like giving nicknames. Never gotten one. I think it's because Keith is a very difficult name to condense. So yeah, no. But in relation, so we're talking about nicknames.
So Peter means rock.
Peter means rock, and
it took a long, arduous journey to get to that point. And
Peter wasn't his name.
So his name is Simon. Simon. And his brother was Andrew. Mm-hmm. And Andrew sees, they both know John the Baptist and are learning from John the Baptist, followers of John the Baptist. And John the Baptist points out Jesus as the Lamb of God. Mm-hmm. And Andrew's like, oh man. So he just well, see you later. Hustles after Jesus, catches up to him. Jesus is like, dude, why?
This is John.
Yeah. Yeah, Jesus is like, dude, why you follow me? He's like, because I know. So he said,
wink,
nudge, nudge. You know what I mean? Right. And sets down, learns from him all day until 4:00 in the afternoon, which I think is interesting that they put the time in the scripture there.
It is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's okay, good. I don't know, cultural, contextually, I don't know if that just means all day.
I don't
know.
40, there's got to be something there that 40, us as laymen don't know.
Yeah, 40 days is a long time. And then 4:00 in the afternoon, I'm like, whoa.
Wow, you didn't even take a break for lunch?
All
no
day.
Siesta?
Nothing. Yeah. So anyway, then he runs off and gets his brother. Simon tells Simon, hey man, found Christ the Messiah.
Come check this out.
Come check this out. So Simon and Andrew, they go off Jesus. Boom, Jesus meets Simon and gives him a nickname and says, Simon, son of John, you are
my rock.
You're rock. Awesome.
Yeah.
Rock.
Now, here's my question for you, right? Because I've been thinking about this.
I just want to call him Rock. Can we just call him Rock?
The Rock. I think The Rock is taken, but we could just use Rock.
Well, so here's where it goes. So that.
Well, hold on a minute. I want to pause for a minute.
Okay.
Because I think this is interesting. Because doesn't Jesus say, "You will be my rock"?
No, your name is Rock.
No, I don't. We'll have to look it up. Because I will know you as my rock.
You are Simon the son of John. Your name will be Cephas. Your name will be Cephas. All right. So Cephas comes from, we have Aramaic, which would have been what Jesus spoke. Mm-hmm. Right? When they're Aramaic, walking around, kicking it.
For my layman understanding.
Right? Yeah, they're speaking this Aramaic. Which then the way I understand it, there's some ancient Greek that shares some stuff with Aramaic. But in that,
modern Greek is different.
In that we have the Cephas, which is
not to be confused with Bocephus.
No, not to be confused with old Bocephus.
Okay.
Who has multiple nicknames. Bocephus is only one.
That's right.
So we have Cephas, and this word means rock, and in this Aramaic, and that's that, right? So then when we got into it, translated into Greek stuff later.
It's Petros.
There's Petra, and Petra. There's two different ones. One's feminine, means big cliff. One's masculine, means rock.
It's still versa. It's still rock.
It's still rock, but there's
just the imagery may be different.
So
on what it conjures
which doesn't matter. But it gets into We use Petros because it's masculine,
right?
And Petros turns into Peter. I just want to call him Rock, right? Like Jesus said, Peter, you're a rock. That's what he said. If you could translate the Aramaic, so Peter or Simon, you're a rock. Simon, your name.
Simon, you rock, man.
Simon, your name is Rock. Simon, your name is Rock. Okay.
So
Cephas, Peter,
that's
Rock,
what I think
all the same
is
thing.
so confusing sometimes to newer people to faith when they're reading, and they'll use it interchangeably. They'll say Simon, or they'll say Peter. They'll say Simon Peter, right? Like it's just this interchangeable, thing that if you don't know the context behind it. I just think we confuse
all sorts of stuff with our Englishification of things.
Englishification, is that a word?
Yeah, Keith.
It's now a word.
Well, it's on the internet. At least now it is. No, like I don't understand because your name's Keith, right?
Yeah, I have no idea the origin of it. I think
great.
Or it means forest or something like that. I think
if someone wants to get your attention and address you, they're going to use Keith
or Craig. I've been known to go by Craig before.
No, stick with me here. They're going to use Keith.
Yeah,
that's what you, since childhood, have been conditioned to respond to.
Yeah,
is that combination
or Daddy gets me right when I'm out in public and somebody's like, Daddy, because you think it's your kid. I think you'd actually get me to respond quicker with Daddy at this point than Keith.
Okay, can we stay on topic?
Yeah, sorry.
So
go ahead.
You've been conditioned to respond to that combination of consonants and syllables.
Sure.
It's Keith.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If we were in Russia, you would still respond to that combination of consonants and syllables, and it doesn't, how do you say my name in Russian? You just say your name.
Well,
the other things are fine.
The problem is when you start going to other, so I had friends from Mexico, right? In college, had a couple friends that were from Mexico, just came over. I mean, spoke really good English, right? And but in Spanish, in the language, the vowels are different and the consonants are different, and so they would call me get all the time because they couldn't pronounce Keith, right? So they'd call me get. And then I had another friend later who was from India, and I can't even pronounce it how he pronounced it.
But they were attempting to
recreate it, but they were using their language to do it. But to your point, over time, I would just respond to it because I'm not gonna be that guy that's gonna be like, no, I'm sorry, it's Keith.
Yeah,
it's Keith.
No, but my name's Mitchell. But if I were touring France, I wouldn't go by Michel.
I
would.
You would.
Okay,
because it just sounds really cool.
Maybe I would. All right. Okay. Fine. Oui. All right. It took us a long time to get to that point, but okay, fine. You got me. When in France.
When in France,
go by Michel.
That's just kind of. I mean, my thing is, but you. I mean, here's what I'll go by anything. You can call me anything. I won't correct you. I just know that you're talking to me. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of this point. Can you imagine when Peter goes back to his family and they're all calling him Simon and he's like, "No, I'm sorry, my name's now Cephas," or whatever, right? They're like, "Okay, Simon."
Yeah, and maybe nobody else. Maybe Jesus was the only one that called him Cephas, right?
Yeah.
Maybe to your point, maybe it was the personal nickname.
Yeah, it was a personal nickname. that he just like went by later, you know. Interesting. So it's just interesting to me that, you know, and it happens several times in the Bible around these characters. Well, they'll have one name, and then later on they'll have another.
Cataclysmic changes too, right? Yeah. Abram to Abraham. So,
when we'll kind of talk a little bit about Peter's story throughout this, right? So Jesus is like, hey, you're going to be known as Rock, right? And even later, you know, Jesus says, you know, hey, you'll be the rock that my church is built on, right? So he has a very affinity towards Peter, but Peter always seems to, like, he's either like 50-50, right? He'll get the answer right, and then he'll get the answer wrong.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, and there's this pattern of like Jesus asking them questions, and he gets the answer right, and it's like, yeah, man, and then he gets it completely wrong like 2 seconds later, right? Yep. And like I feel like that's you in school, right, with a teacher, right? Maybe you're not the type to raise your hand and answer a question, right? And then you get called on. You know, because nobody's answered the question, right? And then you get it right, and the teacher's like, oh, good job, you know? And then you're like, oh, my confidence is up a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. So then the next question, nobody's answering it, or a little further down in the same class, nobody's answering it, and you're like, well, I got that last one, right? And you volunteer, right? And it's completely the wrong answer. And then you just get shot. You don't want to answer any more questions for like a month.
Yep.
Right? I just feel like that's exactly how Peter feels like multiple times throughout the Bible, right? Like where he's just like, dude, I got it right. You know, I'm feeling good, and then just gets it wrong. So it's that journey, right?
Yeah.
That journey, that up and down.
Spikes and drops.
So what does it say really about the relationship between, because here's what's interesting about Jesus at times, right? There may be people that he comes across where he's like, hey, come follow me, right? Give up all your worldly goods, forget all that stuff, come follow me, right? And then they're kind of like, oh, hey, can you give me a day? And he's like, nope, deuces,
yep.
Right? Okay. And then there's some people like Peter where he like really spends a lot of time and effort to build that relationship, and just continually giving that patience and that love and that respect to. So what does it really tell you about Jesus's love and patience when it comes to Peter, and then in relationship to us today?
Yeah. So like one of the interactions. So like when Jesus walks on water. Sea of Galilee on the lake, sends the guys across in a boat. He's going to stay behind for a bit, and then it's like just before dawn, like sun's coming up, things are kind of misty, whatever. Here comes Jesus, cruising across the top of the water, walking towards them. Everybody starts freaking out.
Thinking it's maybe a ghost.
Yeah, he
right?
calls out, says, "Nope, just me, guys. Chillax," right? And Peter is like, if it's really you, Lord, call to me. I'm coming out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
No.
He's like, come on, man. Let's go.
No, but see, no one else. The whole boat's full of other disciples. And none of them are like, yeah, I got the faith. I'm brave enough. I've got the faith enough. I've got the courage enough to ask Jesus to join him out there doing awesome stuff. Peter's the only one.
Yeah. Well, he's kind of...
the rest of them are like, that's a no for me, dog.
That's a no for me, dog. I'm comfy right here in this boat.
Why don't we wait for him to get in the boat? Then we'll talk about it. Like, you just get on over here in the boat.
But, to your point, then... so Peter gets out, and he's walking to him.
Gets in too deep, if you will, right?
And then all of a sudden, like, you know, the wind comes, and he gets a little scared, like, am I going to drown? And then he starts sinking, right? Jesus has to pick him up and, like, you know, toss him in the boat and be like, bro, come on, man. What are you doing? So it was like this dichotomy, right? Of like faith to little faith, to
belief
little faith,
to non-belief.
Right? Yeah,
but still a greater but still his faith was still magnified greatly beyond the bystanders, the rest of them in the boat. Like, we're all like, kind of like, oh, Peter, you little fit, right? Well, man, he steps out the boat.
Yeah.
So I like to. We like to juxtapose him between him and Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I kind of like to go doing the old side by side comparison with like him and the other guys.
Well, see, that's what I'm thinking about.
I think that's why Jesus like really enjoyed him so much and was giving him this nickname and was pouring into him. And
Peter is like the older brother. Okay, I forget if you're older or younger.
I'm middle.
You're middle. Okay, perfect. So I was younger.
Yep.
Okay. And I tell this to my middle child now, and soon I'll tell it to my youngest, which is when the older child does something wrong, you look at the younger ones and you go, I hope you're learning something. Right? Because I learned, because my brother was almost 2 years older than me, 18 months, right? So 2 grades older than me. And so when he would mess up with something, and the parents are like, no, we don't like that. It's like, check. Don't do that.
Wow, that's convenient.
Yeah.
My brother never did anything wrong. Still hasn't.
Oh, well, I mean, man, that
I know. So you're right. That doesn't apply.
So you were the older brother for your younger.
Unapplicable.
But you think like Peter's like the older brother of the disciples? Like where they're like, let's see what Peter does. Let's see if he gets the nod from the good job, or if he gets the pun. Like they're on the boat. They're all like, let's see what Peter does before we do anything, right? Like maybe he was like the older brother of the disciples.
Maybe
Could be. Never know.
I think that was John. I think Peter's like the number 2.
You think?
Yeah, because then he's like trying to get. He's like,
Don't tell some denominations that, that Peter was number 2.
Like second born. So like John's the one Jesus loves.
That's true.
Peter's just trying to get a piece of it.
Yo,
he's
can I get some of that love?
He's like, look at me.
All you're doing is giving me patience. Can I get some love?
He's like, wait, look over here. I'm going to get out the boat. Watch this. Check this out.
Yeah, maybe he's like the younger brother.
Yeah.
Or the middle child that's always trying to get the recrecognition.
That's why I think I'm relating. Relating to Peter.
I like it. One thing that strikes me a little bit and something that I think could be a little controversial to some people out there, but probably makes pretty good sense to most of us, is that Jesus's patience and love for Peter wasn't necessarily because of who Peter was, but who Peter could become, right? And you can see that across the disciples and the interactions that Jesus had with people, is he wanted people to be better than where they were at when he met them, right?
It's kind of like the parable about the bags of gold, right?
Yeah, the talents.
Yeah, he expected for Jesus's ministry, for kingdom building, for future discipling, post Jesus's death and resurrection. Like, he's expecting a lot out of Peter.
Mm-hmm.
So he's investing a lot into Peter.
Yep.
For that ROI, right?
Yep,
like, is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And so like one of my kind of thoughts in a point in my head is that this kind of there's a trend among some people that it's just like, oh, Jesus loves you for who you are, so just stay you. Right? Like, don't worry. Jesus loves you for who you are. You just be you.
You be you. Well,
You
he's,
be you. Well,
he's loving you into the best version of yourself
that you
which
can be.
you're not there yet.
Exactly. And probably will never.
Correct. That's why.
We'll never
That's
get
why
to.
I gave the definitive. You're not there yet.
Yeah. And so, like, my whole thing is for people that kind of point to that, like, oh, just be you. Well, no, otherwise the interaction with Peter would have been, hey, you're going to be my rock. Now, go get him, Tiger. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't have been years, right, of time and effort and patience and love and all that kind of stuff for that transformation.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, like, I think, to your point, like, the truest form of that love is the correction, right? Like, Jesus was always offering course correction stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if he didn't love Peter and coincidentally the rest of us so much, it's the love that causes the course corrections of.
And the course corrections weren't nice all the time either, right? Like,
No.
like they teach you now in like leadership or like schools, if somebody gives you the wrong answer, you'd be like, okay, that's a really great thought. Does anyone else have any other thoughts? Okay, you didn't answer it right? Like you're trying to be like really nice and polite with it, right? But like that didn't happen. Like just, oh, Peter, that's a really great thought, man. Thanks for having that. John, did you have a different opinion? He would,
Hold on. Let's see what all Peter had to say.
Yeah, no, just hold on. Would you like to expound on that thought a little bit differently? Let's
see if he gets to the point that I am who I say I am. Let's see if he give him a minute.
Yeah. So I think that is, I think that speaks a lot to me around the transformation of Peter, right? Is that it was to your point, it's mistake correction, and not necessarily beating around the bush with it, right? Or hey, that was a really good try, man. But really rewarding the positive, right? With with exuberation.
Yeah, and I think like some of them were like big, pronounced, correct, right? So Jesus says, "Hey, who do people say I am?" Right?
Right.
And the disciples give the different things. The different. Oh, you're Elijah.
Right. You're this. You're this.
Moses.
Well, who
right.
do you
Like.
think I am?
Right. Who do you think? And then he says, "Who do you think I am?" And then Peter's like, "Well, I know who you are. You're the one and only Son of God. Like,
yeah,
you're the Messiah, right?" And that's when Jesus is like, "Blessed are you, Simon. You figured it all, and I truly, you got the answer. It was revealed to you by God, not because Jesus didn't never come out and say that, right? Like, he didn't put those words in his mouth. Like, it's been revealed to him. And he said, you're the rock, and that faith, and your testimony for who I am is what we're going to build the church on."
Yep.
And then like immediately following,
3 minutes later,
right? Immediate, and then at the Hall of Justice, right? Like immediately,
Jesus talks about how he needs to die.
He's like, hey, he's like, all right, now that Peter's called it out,
yeah,
I'm gonna let you guys know what's gonna happen here, right?
A little foreshadowing.
It's like on the road trip, like, all right, we're pulling in here, we're gonna get some gas. Everybody's gonna go to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
And Peter's like, no, I don't have to go.
No, I don't have to go, right? And then
And you don't have to go either.
Yeah.
No,
we're not doing that.
We're not
doing that. We're going back where we came from.
Yeah. So then it was really hard course correction because Jesus is like,
get away from me.
Get behind me, you adversary.
I can't handle this right now. This is where we're going, and if you can't do it, get behind me.
Yep, you are not on board with the plan.
Yeah. So I think that's for me, it's comforting to me to know that in two things. One, as a disciple who questioned Jesus and his motives sometimes and what he needed to do, right? That's a little comforting to me, to know that it's okay. It's okay to question something, but it's what you do with it's what you do after it that I think matters the most, right? And so, and the fact that it's a journey, it's a progress. It's not an instantaneous transformation, and I think that that's also the real great thing about Peter and the story across all the Gospels is really the transformation of Peter, and to think, if he could do it to Peter, he could do it for anybody.
I love it.
That's it. We ran out of time.
Oh, sands of time are gone. We had all sorts of stories for Peter. We could have talked. Well, we could talk for a long time.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Catch you next time.
We'll see you later.